you've got to be fit. So according to my information, it says that this hangout is live. So what are you reading?
Live now. Yep.
Awesome, that's great.
Live.
I can't see anything, but as we know, we have a bad internet here. Hey, we've got one viewer.
Cool.
So thanks to that one viewer that's watching us. That's cool. How's it going, Carl?
Hey, not bad.
To our North American friends and our friends in England, it's still cold here.
Yeah. Very.
What I'm going to do, buddy, is I'm just going to go to the feed to see if you come up talking. Can you do some talking so I can see if you come up on the live feed, please? Because you know how we had an issue there a couple of weeks ago?
Yep. Mic check. Soundboard.
Awesome. You're up and running. That's good. I just want to go now here and see if there's anybody in the chat. Hey, we got Simon in the chat. Simon, hi Simon. Simon is it was Simon's birthday a couple of days ago. I'm not going to say how old Simon was because no one wants to be reminded how old they are. But happy birthday, Simon.
Excellent. Happy birthday.
Yeah, I'll send you a link to Simon. Simon's a regular contributor on a couple of groups, Blues Nut, and we've also offered an invitation for him to join us at some stage. Probably on the weekend show might be a little bit easier for him. But anyway, just give us a yell, Simon, when you're ready, and Carl and I will always be happy to have you on. Yeah, so yes, it was very old. Thanks very much. It starts with a 6, and that's all he's saying. Well, 16 ends in a 6, so you could be 16, 26, 36. Come on. Don't let the truth get in the way. How have you been, buddy?
Oh, good. Yeah, good. Pretty good. I just, like I said, I've been a little bit under the weather. Just a bit of a dry cold. Just enough to keep you at bay. But doing a few things. Started to play the guitar a bit more, which is always good. I might as well break out the axe anyway. I don't think you've seen it. You probably can't even see it because it's so small. Can you see the...
Hey, we don't want to listen. Just show us the guitar first. Start off with the head and go down. Show us that guitar.
Can you see
and
it?
I'll be quiet. Oh, you'll have to speak up, mate.
Well, I'm going through my cell phone, so the camera's small, but there's the head. Can you see the neck, Ebony? And then the gold hardware, the tiger stripe. Kind of. Well, I guess I should get my laptop up and running one day.
My God, that is beautiful.
Yeah.
Yep, and Simon's right. Simon's saying it's a ES335. Looks a beauty. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 355.
355.
Yeah.
I knew that.
Yeah, so overall pretty happy. But yeah, we've been playing that a little bit. But once again, just playing the old songs. I need to be like Andrew, be a bit more proactive, learn some good stuff.
That guitar is beautiful. That's a beautiful guitar, and I won't be buying one. If I do, I'll get the Epiphone version, which is substantially cheaper than that.
Yeah, well, it's pretty full on, eh? I mean, here's a Gibson custom book. Gibson custom certificate of authenticity, HBO, blah 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 blah. So it's the real deal, signed by Rick Gemba. Here we go. The instrument bearing the serial number above was hand-built by Gibson Custom, where highly skilled artisans are committed to the company's century-old tradition of creating exquisite investment quality instruments. This guitar boldly reflects the highest standards of imaginative design and masterful craftsmanship. Not a bad statement, isn't it?
Wow.
Not a bad statement. That's pretty, yes, yeah, strong backing. So yeah, one more time. Pearl inlay from the Mediterranean, ebony from Africa, tiger wood from North America, gold from Peru, hardware from Switzerland, engineering from Americans, played by a Kiwi.
Played by a Kiwi. And for anyone who doesn't know, a Kiwi is a colloquial term for a
flightless bird.
Yeah, a New Zealander. Hey man, that's beautiful. I love that guitar. I love that. The closest I've got to hollow body is a Casino, and they have a unique tone, don't they? They just. I played a what's the black one that BB King's signature one?
Lucille.
Yeah. The local rock shop had that a couple of years ago and played that, and it was just phenomenal.
A real deal Gibson.
Yeah. They had one in the rock shop. I think it was
4 or 5 grand.
No, more than that. It was. I think it was about 8 grand.
So how was the excuse me? How was the play policy?
Oh, you can play anything there.
Oh wow! So when you buy it and they describe it as new, and a whole bunch of people have played it, it's what it is.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's exactly the situation. A guitar is unless you, I suppose, order something online and get something from overseas. But generally speaking, if you order a guitar or go into any of the rock shops here in New Zealand, a guitar is hanging up, and that's the guitar you're going to get.
Yep, I bought that online. Apparently, the guy had a N with the custom shop and got a bit of a discount, but that might have been played by 5 or 6 guys. Who knows? At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter as long as there's no gouges, scratches, or cracks, and it's as long as it's authentic.
Yeah, well, I was a bit disappointed when I got my Clapton Strat because there were a couple of little faint scratch,
Superficial.
And because I had a beady eye for it before I picked it up, I pointed that out. And
they're black. They're black.
Yeah.
Black shows all.
And I was lucky because my beady eye pointed that out, and I managed to get a discount for it.
Yeah.
But I think if you're paying if you're paying anything over 2K, this is my own personal view, it should be the techs if the shop's got one, and probably you. I think, it should be out of the box.
Almost. Yeah, almost. Yeah. Why not? Yeah. No, that's good. It's not a perfect world, but I tell you what, when you're buying something decent, it better be decent.
Yeah, so we've got JC Smith here. JC Smith is a friend of ours who we see on other Facebook shows. So JC Smith, I think he's a Canadian. Yeah. So that's cool. G'day, JC Smith.
Yep.
So we're continuing the Riff show.
Absolutely. Yep. And
what have you got?
I was going to just talk about that. So we finished up with that, I guess you would say, I guess the third period of the classic period, and I'm going to finish up with the final fourth period. One period meaning... Yeah, one period meaning Beggars Banquet, second period meaning Let It Bleed, third period being Sticky Fingers, the final period being Exile on Main Street, which is basically, if that's not a riff album, I don't know what is. So my first riff from that particular album is the first song, and it basically knocks your socks off, is Rocks Off, which Andrew plays left-handed. How did you manage to play that left-handed? I watched the video. Was it back to front, or you just trying to...
I think it was my camera.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it was just my camera. Rocks Off is a great song. It's a great tune, isn't it?
Yeah, it just starts out like, just bolts out the gate like a couple of horses, just like, I've tried to play it all my life standard tuning, and when you played it with the open, was it open G, open D, open E, open A?
Open G.
It's so much better. So, just a quintessential rock song. Simple, catchy, stripped down, good tone, good riff, good energy, good beat. I just really, really like that one. And on the 73 tour, they played that really well. I've got a bootleg of them playing that in Perth, of all places.
Where?
Yeah. And it's these. One thing about bootlegs is the sound's never good, but they always come up with really cool album covers and titles. This one was called "Will Keith Ever Wake Up?" Or it might be, will Keith wake up for the show? It was one of those things, yeah. But that actual particular show in Perth it's on YouTube. It's outdoors. Amazing show. 73 tour. We've talked about that live in Brussels, which is supposed to be legendary. But the 73 tour, the band was on fire. They had good tone, they had good sound, and they played really well in New Zealand and Australia. My dad was telling me that he was invited to the show, wanted to go to the show. Raglan was about 4 foot, clean. The sun was shining. There was no wind, and there was no one at the point because everyone was at the Stone show. So he disregarded the Stone show and went surfing instead. But my uncle was at the Stone show, said it was incredible. 73 at Mount Smart. So, and they would have opened up that show with Rocks Off. So, what a way to kick off a great double album,
And so I'm just rewinding a bit. So your dad's kicking himself. How many years later?
Well, he likes the story. I mean, I don't know. I think part of him would have loved to be at the show. He definitely had Stones tapes in his car. But, I mean, him and one other guy had to point to themselves, apparently, Manu Bay. well, yeah, the point is a slang for the term Manu Bay, which is a famous point break in Raglan, but New Zealand. But I you know, me being me, you being you, I mean, I'm pretty sure we would have gone to the show. I mean, it's hard for bands, great bands, to come to New Zealand. So when they do come, you got to go, eh? So that would have been a big deal. I mean, world tour and touching down. They probably would have only gone to Auckland and Christchurch, maybe Wellington, but legendary show. But I want to touch on one thing real quick. Yeah, it was just it was a just a running hot band. So Rocks Off is my first one.
So when I hear that song, and I read recently where one guy, a drummer, was talking about that drum part, and that's the obviously being a drummer, he's biased, but the drummer was saying that that's a great drum intro by Charlie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, the problem is when you're talking about the stuff, you want to go and listen to it now, don't you?
Yeah.
But I remember the guys saying that that's just a classic Charlie Watts drumming at its best.
Yep. Wow. Yeah. I mean, it takes many working parts for a great engine to operate, and I mean, obviously we hear Keith's amazing riff intro, but you know, I mean, Charlie, wow, and obviously Mick's singing, just a great song. I mean, I'm not even going to pretend to play it standard tuning because it doesn't sound that good.
You can't play it standard tuning.
Who said?
It just doesn't even sound. I've tried. I tried for 20 years to try and play that standard tuning.
Yeah.
I can't even remember how I tried to play it in standard. Can you grab your? How would you play that? How would you play that intro in standard tuning?
Oh, it just sounds terrible. I'll quickly demonstrate. It sounds terrible.
Yeah, you do that, mate. You grab your guitar, and I'll grab my Telecaster as a comparison and see how that goes as a comparison. Because I can't even remember how to play that. I'm here, buddy. Okay, I'm here, buddy. So how would you play that in standard? Six out of 10. Six out of 10. You need to plug your amp in. Oh shit! Sorry, sorry for swearing. We'll start again. It's been a while. Then it goes. Then yeah. And then I think that song is that chugging, isn't it?
Yeah. Boogie Woogie, Chuck Berry.
And that's what gives a lot of these songs, obviously, if you plug that in at some stage, I'd be interested to hear how that sounds standard.
Yeah, not a patch on your one, because your one sounds like the record. You got the tally, you got the tone, the maple neck, open G tuning. That's how it was meant to be played. It's a bit like that guy that came into the store that tried to start me up with that really strange chord finger thing with spider fingers. It just sounded okay, but just looked weird.
Oh, look, I think I'm a simple guitar player. I'm not going to get into tonewood debates or what guitar it should be played on. I will say this though, open G certainly makes a difference, and then you just play with whatever guitar you've got,
Yeah,
and through whatever amp or amp package you've got, and just make it work for you.
I think what I'm hearing is and I've when I played in a band and standard tuning, you have a lot of what they call, I think it's called a thud sound, but with the open G and with how Keith kind of started that, it almost sounds like bright's not the word, but it definitely opened up a different sound. Just a real, I don't know. It just, I don't know what he did, but it just sounds amazing.
I think that the best word that sums it up for me, and it was mentioned in the chat a couple of weeks ago, and again, Keith mentions it in his biography, the word drone. The sound, the strings have this drone, and if people don't know, get a guitar, tune it to open G, plug it into the amp, turn it up a bit, and just give it a strum, and then you'll know exactly what. If you can't pick that up through hearing the records, you'll pick it up by playing it. That's my best advice, and then you'll understand exactly what.
Yeah, it's almost, it's bright, but it's deep, but it's rhythmic, but it's so many different things. Yet it's so simple but so effective.
Well, that's right, and that's what scared the hell out of me, because when I put myself into a position to start learning to play open G, I couldn't believe that this is all I had to do: put my finger across here on this fret and move these two fingers on these two strings, and that was it. It's almost like it can't be this simple.
There's a riff that I'll talk about. It's going to be way on down the show, and I'm like, it's such a catchy riff. And then I YouTube and see how it's done, and it's like, that's just so simple. It's just almost wrong. I won't talk about it now, but simple is best.
Yeah, and that's part of the journey, isn't it? And discovering and wanting to learn the songs or the riffs by the bands that you love. That's half the joy. One part of it's listening to the song and go, wow, and then wanting to buy a guitar and forming a band with some guys and playing it and trying to play it yourself. That's the other joy that I like, and we'll be doing it to the day we die.
Yeah, and one of the things I've learned with my journey in life, and I've struggled with this, is I overthink everything. And if you actually do not overthink everything and simplify everything actually makes sense. Why make it complicated? Who wants to listen to a 12 chord jazz progression that's supposed to be catchy? It's not. I mean, the greatest riffs ever have been the most simplest things known to man.
3 chords.
Smoke on the Water and Satisfaction and Cocaine and
95% of AC/DC songs, 3 chords.
Hoochie Coochie Man.
ZZ Top, 95% of their songs.
I love it. I mean, A, D, and E, A, E, and B, A, B, and just. So that's good. Now Rock's off, and the next one, he's starting to get a bit clever, a bit bluesy, a bit swampy. Ventilator Blues.
Mm.
I can't quite hum it, but
Yeah.
not only is it quite swampy, but a nice tone.
Who wrote that song?
Don't know. It'd just be Jagger's Richard standards.
So they're saying here Jagger, Richards, and Mick Taylor's got credit for it.
Well, that's good.
It's the only Stones number for which Mick Taylor is credited, along with the Glimmer Twins.
Well, that's great. About time. Probably quite a few more.
Yeah, I want to go and listen to that song now. Yeah,
Put it on there.
So that's an open G slide, open G. Yeah, and there's a close connection with the chess giant Muddy Waters and Howling Wolf. Oh, okay. So that was recorded in 71.
Okay.
Yeah, Mick Taylor. We can talk about Mick Taylor a little bit later on. What's the next one?
So, moving on down to Soul Survivor.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not picking out little nuggets that don't generally come up in discussion, conversation. Stuff that's I think is great, which is the binding glue which makes Exile great. Because when we think of Exile, we think of Tumbling Dice, which is great. We think of the double album. We think of Shake Your Hips and a few standards, but underneath the surface is some really neat little songs, and Soul Survivor is another one.
Yeah, I always liked Soul Survivor. Always did. While we're talking about that album, I always liked Sweet Black Angel. I always thought that was a beautiful song. And
Absolutely.
Loving Cup.
Yep.
Loving Cup was one of the first songs I learnt to play right through on an acoustic guitar. Pretty simple.
Yep.
And I thought that the Stones did a really good job with Jack White in that Shine a Light DVD.
Okay.
Jack White did a pretty good version of that, singing that with Mick.
Yep. That's the DVD with Buddy Guy and Christina Aguilera?
No, that's one that's got the Clintons in it. One that...
oh, nice.
Hold on, but this one here.
Oh, okay. Yep. Shine a Light. Yep.
Yeah, Shine a Light. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it does have Aguilera. Yeah, I've never watched that. I skipped that. Sorry.
It was a Scorsese live in New York.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah, got Aguilera, Buddy Guy, and Jack White. Yeah, sorry. Yep. I skipped the Aguilera song.
Live with Me. Yeah. Yeah. Next. Yeah. No. Well, I mean, we could go on. I mean, Exile is, as we know, a double album, chock full of riffs. Well, I mentioned before, Shake Your Hips, Stop Breaking Down. It's another beautiful Robert Johnson standard. But I just wanted to talk about, Ventilator Blues and Soul Survivor. Just, little cherished little nuggets that kind of like get not necessarily lost, but deep down are actually really, really great songs. Because I mean, I've been guilty in the past of buying, a compilation or listen to their hits or skipping a few songs. Stones are so good, especially that classic period. You got to listen to every song. And you mentioned Sweet Black Angel, which is supposed to be written about a black activist called Angela Davis. Loving Cup has a real Southern influence. I mean, we can go on about Exile. I Just Want to See His Face. What a beautiful gospel song that is. I mean, it had everything, that album. Everything. Everything. Sweet Virginia, don't even get me started.
Yeah. Oh, that's my favourite Stones album.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's my favourite. If I had to pick my top 3 albums, that's certainly definitely number 1, 2, or 3, depending on what number 1 and number 2 is. They always change, but certainly that album. And every song is, as you've said, is amazing. I think what's interesting about that song is, we were lucky enough that they did that 2010 remastered version, and they came out with a couple of other songs that didn't make the album, which gives us another insight into that whole process. Then they do the DVD by giving us a little bit of an insight on what was happening around that time. And for fans like us and people who were young during that time, it probably wasn't anything new. There's no new information, but the DVD clearly was orientated towards younger people. So if that's going to turn them on to the Stones, well, it's done the job, hasn't it?
Yeah, and it's another interesting thing. We talked about this about maybe 6 shows back. Obviously, they left England because they weren't broke, but they owed taxes. So France had some kind of law where they could maybe, as the word exile became exiles, and they had a lot of problems recording that album based on the simple fact that it was hot and they were in a big basement and electricity was getting cut off apparently. But it just goes to show you in the depths of despair, great music can appear. I mean,
well, I don't know. I can't remember if you and I spoke about this, and I'm sorry if we are repeating ourselves, but I suppose that's probably the whole half a course with the series, is that we will be probably unintentionally repeating ourselves. But I had a conversation with a guy 2 weeks ago who said that Keith was smashed off his face. I think we did talk about this, and you and I agreed and thought, well, maybe, yeah, he was, but to what degree? Maybe he wasn't as smashed as maybe the legend builds him up to be. And I think Simon made a comment on one of our shows by saying, yeah, well, certainly Keith has added to that myth too, by saying that he went to Sweden he didn't go to Sweden for chocolate or something.
Skiing.
Yeah. So I think there was definitely some artistic conscious effort there on behalf of the band to produce something that was really good. I think they were onto it, a little bit like the Beatles. They knew that they were producing something good. And if you read anything about these guys who produce these great albums with great songs, they all agree and say, yeah, this is really, they know it. I think the Stones knew that.
Yeah. I think I don't know what the word is, the myth's larger than the legend, or the legend's larger than the myth, but they were pretty serious about producing an album because Bill Wyman rented a house. Charlie got a house. I think it was a bit like not like a workout regime, but they had a system down where, they would sleep in till about lunchtime, and then start rehearsing, and then start about 6, and then probably finish rehearsals about midnight, and then go and get smashed possibly till the early hours of the morning, and then wake up around lunchtime again. But I think they're pretty serious about getting some good songs down because, Bill and Charlie are not weak people, and Mick is a pretty strong guy, and Mick Taylor wouldn't be able to, there would have definitely been some kind of discipline going on. I think the partying would have happened after the studio time. Myself personally, we know that Graham Parsons was around. Was that right? Quite a heavy influence there.
Mm.
A lot of famous pictures of Graham Parsons. A lot of acoustic going on there, and a lot of country music influence. That's what else gives the Exile a unique flavour, is the country sound. Torn and Frayed, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, well, Keith said a few times that he appreciated what Parsons was doing for him. He was taking him through that whole journey of country music, and he was getting it from a guy who understood it. And I think Graham Parsons told him that country music was, along with blues, the purest. If you want to understand American music, or the purest form of American music, country and blues were the two forms of music to do that.
Yep. And through Graham Parsons and a little bit of my research and through the Stones, obviously, you had what was the Graham in? He was in the Flying Burrito Brothers.
Yes, the Flying Burrito Brothers and the Underground Submarine Band or something before that.
And before the Flying Burrito, he was with the band called what was the last version of the Byrds called?
You got me.
Okay.
Is anyone in the chat gonna help us? No.
I'll get it. Yeah, it's but I'm trying to paint a picture real quick.
No problem. The paint's not going to go dry. While Carl's doing that, I'll show you guys my lemon drop, my pedigree lemon drop. If anyone wants to have a look. So this is relict, bought relict.
Is it the pedigree one?
Yeah, this is my pedigree one.
That when you say relict.
Yeah, so it's bought factory relict.
Oh, nice.
Not as nice as your Gibson.
Well, sorry. So going back to Graham, so the Gilded Palace of Sin was a famous time. So that gave us the mainstream rock country sound, which obviously the Eagles and Neil Young did. Sweetheart of the Rodeo, the Byrds. So I was right. It was just the Byrds.
That album's phenomenal. Sweetheart of the Rodeo. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. So what actually happened there was Graham basically took away that kind of San Francisco pop sound and gave the band a bit more authenticity.
So there's two versions of that album. There's one version with Graham singing, Graham singing, and another version with Roger singing.
Okay, Roger McGuinn.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about those albums, it goes back to, like when you mentioned earthy blues, now earthy country, the Levine brothers. That particular kind of sound of singer-songwriter, guitar, banjo, guitar, mandolin, bluegrassy in a kind of way, churchy, southern, and that all those roots tie into Exile by way of Graham's big influence, the American influence. So Graham, in a way, was a big part of that Exile sound.
Do you think he's on any of the tracks?
Good question. if you buy the album, there's a lot of guys lending hand. Ry Cooder's on a little bit. A guy called Bill Plummer. There's a lot of a lot of guest musicians.
I reckon he's on there.
Okay.
That's my view. You can't tell me that he's not on there playing something or doing something.
Mm.
And for what reason they didn't want to give him any credit for being? Was he in any kind of management disputes or recording disputes around that time? I know that he upset the Birds because he didn't want to go to South Africa and to hang out with stay with the Stones. Was there any contractual obligations, do you think, holding that information back?
I just know before he died, he had a couple of apparently famous albums with Emmylou Harris. I'm not sure. I don't know much about Graham at all. At all. All it is he was like what Eric Clapton was to Duane Allman, Keith was to Graham.
And that's precisely why I argue that he must be on there doing something.
Okay.
So if somebody wants to offer an opinion on that, that's okay. We'll take all opinions. Sorry about that. No, Grievous. Hold on. So Simon's
Grievous Angel.
Grievous Angel. Yes. Graham was there during the recording, says Wikipedia. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and there's a lot of photographs of him hanging out with the guitar in hand. So yeah, that's my view. I think he was there in some way, actually on some of those songs.
More than likely. He definitely was a huge inspiration. And unfortunately, was a little bit weaker than Keith and liked the good stuff. Yeah. But what a musician.
What a legacy.
That Love Hurts. What a neat song by Nazareth. Who would have known that it was actually a Graham Parsons, Emmylou Harris song?
Well, their version's beautiful, isn't it?
Just amazing. So that's why it's important to obviously listen to the radio, but the radio is not the be and end all. You got to go to the roots. I mean, I would have thought, oh, Nazareth, Scottish band, Love Hurts, awesome song. What an awesome band, not knowing that, found out years and years later, Graham Parsons.
Yeah, well, I was in that boat too. I didn't know until years later too that it was Graham Parsons. So, no, I'm with you. I'm with you on that one.
So I'm pretty much at a wrap with my Exile riffs. You got any Exile riffs you want to contribute?
No, because I'm not the scientist. I haven't gone to a plan or gone chronologically. I've just picked some songs. So, well, the song the riff that I got knocked over by clearly is "Can't You Hear Me Knocking." I remember the first time I heard that was around the same time I discovered Van Halen.
Yep.
So I'm listening to Van Halen one day, and then I'm listening to Sticky Fingers the next day, and I didn't see any dichotomy between those two albums. When I was a young guy, my friends, I can't see you, buddy.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, got no camera. It's just your icon. I'll keep talking while
there you go.
Yep, you're back on board. Cool.
What happens? I had a couple of phone calls come through. I think it knocks it off.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah. So I was listening to those albums simultaneously, and I didn't see a dichotomy between them. But I do remember talking about that with a couple of my school friends, and they obviously were getting into Van Halen because that was such a a big event 5 or 6 years after when it came out, when we were listening to it in the circle of friends I was hanging out with. But Sticky Fingers, no one was listening to that. But when I heard that album right through, the first song that I thought wow to was Can't You Hear Me Knocking. And then you listen to it, and then you've got that nice song, that crunchy song going on, and then it goes into that jam, and it's like, holy cow.
Yeah, it's like 7 minutes long.
7 minutes long, mate. And then you've got Bobby Keys adding his magic.
Yeah.
And then you've got Rocky playing the gongas, adding his magic.
Yeah.
And then Mick Taylor obviously just blasting.
And the Stones could do anything, because what was big at that particular time, obviously outdoor festivals, Woodstock, the California Jam. Speaking of jam, bands that could jam, Santana. And here's the Stones doing that sort of Latin feel in a studio. A bunch of pomps. there was no big Afro wigs, and obviously Rocky Dijon was there, but the Stones could mix it up and match it up with anybody.
So I haven't been very good because I haven't paid much attention to the chat, and I'm sorry about that, guys. I will promise to do that in future. But JC Smith has, mate, Graham was there during the recording of Wikipedia, during the recording, according to Wikipedia, and he was asked to leave in July 71. So the Stones told him to leave in 71? Probably. Was that because he was getting in the way of Keith? Was the drug habit becoming an issue? Was that why he was asked to leave?
I do know that through my research, Mick Jagger was really jealous of him.
So it had nothing to do with the drugs then. It was just the fact that there was another guy hanging out with Keith.
Well, Mick and Keith were obviously the leaders of the band, and Graham was very close to Keith, and Mick was very insecure. There's some pictures of them sitting around a table, and Mick's got a bit of a scowl on his face. And
well, JC Smith is saying, yep, he agrees. He agrees. He thinks that's probably the reason why he was asked to leave, because Mick was getting a little bit upset. And that's understandable, I suppose, because maybe Mick was clever enough to know that he needed to have the full attention of Keith, and Keith needed his full attention for them to work on this album, and anybody else was going to that wasn't part of the band was going to be a influence away from that project.
Yeah, well, probably double-edged sword. I mean, one side's here's a legendary late '60s American roots artist, helping them out with a certain authenticity. And the other flip side is, here's a guy that could potentially be a liability because he liked the sweet stuff, like the nose candy and stuff like that. So,
well, here's another comment, mate, that I want to draw your attention to. Simon our friend has said that Love Hurts was written by Bordeaux Bryant.
Everly Brothers. That's the songwriting team that wrote for the Everly Brothers in the late 50s. That's probably a different version altogether. Probably same title, same song title. Oh, I'm not sure. Maybe he's right. I'll have a look.
Well, I've been reading a lot of Simon stuff over the few months, and he's generally on the money.
All right. Well, they might have modernised it temporarily, and
I did not know that. I didn't know that. Wow.
He's right. Song written and composed by American songwriter Bordeaux Bryant, first recorded by the Everly Brothers in July 1960. Song became a well-known hit for the Scottish hard rock band Nazareth. Top 5 hit by the English singer Jim Capilati. All right, so then well the middle guy was middle people were Graham and Emmylou.
Yeah, well, thanks, Simon. We always appreciate people putting their expertise and their experience and their knowledge up front for us to be corrected, and because that's what it's about. It's about making sure that we're trying to get it right. One other interesting thing here that JC Smith, he's made a comment of obnoxious behaviour, and Keith was trying to clean up house. So yeah, I did, and yeah, I think JC Smith's hit the nail on the head, because I do remember reading somewhere that Graham had a tendency to upset people, and I think they made reference to the fact that he was a guy that had a silver spoon,
immature,
came from a wealthy family, a little bit spoiled.
Yeah, no, you're right. I did read up about that. He was a guy that probably a little bit like Brian Jones, really, really, really talented, and probably felt entitled.
So do you think him getting kicked out of the Stones, well, kicked out of France, did that have any role in him, dying?
Good point. I mean, I read up. We talked a little bit about his demise. I think it was just a slow decline, really. I don't think he was such a super emotional guy that he was married to Keith or married to the band, in the sense that he felt like he was supposed to be part of them. I think that he was basically a guy that was, I think, it's probably a good little, actually, a similar Brian scenario, really, where there's a lot of insecurities and stuff that goes back to his childhood, because his childhood wasn't the greatest. I think he moved around a lot, was born in Florida and ended up all over the place.
Well, Simon's made a comment here saying that he was from southern US old money, independent means. So yeah, that's correct. I do remember picking that information up somewhere, that he came from a wealthy family, and and I'm not saying this. This is what I've read, and upset people because he was a little bit spoilt, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that a little bit like Mike Bloomfield, where obviously he was born in Winter Haven, Florida, moved to Georgia, so he's probably a guy that was experienced a lot in a short amount of time. Good schools, good guitar teachers. I mean, access to a lot of certain things, but probably missed out on a lot of other things, and he was trying to compensate the stuff he missed out on by covering that up with drugs. Here we go. Yeah, just a bit of an army brat. Depression, both parents are alcoholics. Just, mixed up. A lot of mixed up stuff. Extramarital affairs, heavy drinking. death of the father, just a lot of stuff going on.
So Simon's making this comment: many people who get rich young self-destruct because they have to drive to work. Yeah. Look, I'm not bashing anybody that comes from a wealthy background. Bloomfield, we've discussed him before. Bob Dylan, Bloomfield turned his back, picked up his guitar and went to Chicago and hung out with these black cats and learnt from them. Bob Dylan did the same to an extent. Parsons did the same, didn't he? He sort of, told his parents that he wasn't going to be involved in any plans that they had for him.
Yeah, it's a good point to bring up. I've always struggled with the fact that in order to have the blues, you've got to be poor and poverty-stricken and be broken down, broken-hearted, nothing but a good man feeling down. But I certainly believe that you can have talent, you can have creativity, you can have a certain feeling if you even come from a privileged background. I mean, I don't think shouldn't be any class distinction. I certainly think that I think it gives you character to come from a broken background, a hard upbringing, a poor upbringing. It gives you a certain fight, a certain respect in the sense that you made it on your own. But we should never disregard people that have not necessarily had it easy, but have talent to give us, talent to offer. It's how they use it is the ultimate question.
Well, absolutely, and I think that's the common denominator that we have, because we're musicians, guitar players, and music fans, has to be the music. You have to be able to put aside your politics. You have to put aside your personal prejudices, and if you can connect because of the music and for the music, well, that's a great thing. You and I have played in bands with other people that we didn't like personally, but cheapers, when you played with them, the music was great. So, but you didn't go back and have a beer or a cup of tea with them. You just said see you later and caught up with them on the next gig. So, but then there was the other side of the coin. You played music with somebody, and because you played music, you became really good friends on a personal level.
Yeah.
So that's what I like about music. I wanted to talk about this later on, but maybe we should mention it now because it could be a show in itself. What do you think about, look at Clapton when he started playing? He was playing in front of 17, 18, 19-year-old English kids who were discovering the blues, didn't have much money. We're seeing him at pubs and clubs. Now when he goes and plays a gig, people pay £300, £200 for the seats right up front. And you look at, the gig that he did at 70 at the Royal Albert Hall, they're all sitting there, but they weren't, they're not doing what they did, 30 years beforehand, crammed up the front there and, dancing. It's all very, what's the word, upper class now, isn't it, blues music?
Yeah, I mean when you go to flash restaurants, upscale restaurants, and that's one good thing about jazz music, even though a lot of those great jazz musicians obviously were similar to blues guys, came from impoverished backgrounds or trying backgrounds, is the music itself is bigger than actual class warfare, where it's actually very classy music. So,
and I think too, also these 15 or 16-year-olds have grown up now and they've become general managers, doctors, lawyers, and company directors, so they've got a lot of money. Yeah,
and that's a great thing about blues and jazz. And Eric, you mentioned Eric with the working class, all of a sudden to the white collar, is that music transcends different working backgrounds, because hey, the fundamentals is it's tough, it's gritty, it's dirty, it's real, but it's also very intelligent. And that's why that music appealed to colleges, campuses, folk clubs, book clubs, librarians. You know, they're writing to these guys, what's going on? This stuff's amazing. You're telling us a story. Bob Dylan shared it, you know. So that's why the music's so good. It's just it's basically it's very intelligent, the music. I mean, even if in its most simplest form, it surpasses classical music. You know, I don't know.
Simon's made a good point here, and we'd both agree with him. If you want to find out what people are really like, get into a band with them.
Into a what?
Get into a band with them. Then you'll find out really what they're like.
That is true. That is very true. Yeah, definitely some people that brings out an alter ego in certain people for sure. All of a sudden, I'm a star before I become a star.
I've got to be careful what I say because I could get myself into trouble. But you know, I like the idea of just taking one guitar to a gig and one amp. If you're playing 10 songs, why take 5 guitars? And you're playing in a pub with 15 people. Come on.
Yeah, I remember watching Black Crows at Austin City Limits, and Chris Robertson was obviously letting everybody know he was a rock star. So they played 10 songs, and he had 10 guitars and played a different guitar for every song. And part of me is like, good on him. You know, he's famous. He's got a lot of great songs. He's talented. But what are you trying to say?
Look, Chris Robertson could probably get away with it, but at the local pub in town here, you know, changing your guitar every song, come on.
Yeah. Eric through the 70s obviously had Blackie, and he had that tobacco Strat because those necks were heavily worn. So he wasn't playing a whole lot of guitars, was he?
No.
Probably less than 3.
No, you know, there's shots with them, you know, playing, you know, a Destroyer, you know, and you know, a couple of hollow bodies, but yeah. Overall, it's just you know, one guitar.
The Blackie and number 2 was the tobacco one. Is that right?
Yep. So Simon says, I agree. 1 amp, 2 guitars, and a GT3, and he's away. Yeah, yep. Oh, look, yeah, certainly you got to take 2 guitars. Yeah, absolutely, because you're going to break a string. You know, certainly you need to be. Yeah.
Well, look, and we both love Stevie. He was known as a guy that he had obviously the number 1, which he loved. He'd bring out that beautiful white custom one with the lipstick pickups.
Yep.
Occasionally, he had that red guitar that he'd use only for Lenny.
Yes.
And that was about it. I mean, a few little odds and ends when he broke some strings, but he was a simple man.
Yep.
So that's odd when I get back onto the arena.
Yeah, but I think if you again I'll redeem myself, you know, because if 15 people have come to watch your gig and you've got 5 guitars, if anything does happen to your first, second, third, or fourth guitar, well, at least the 15 people have come out of their way to see you are going to see a set. So respect your audience, whatever size it is. You know, we've all played to empty venues.
Oh, hey, I tell you what, nothing worse than I've seen it, and people don't mean to do it, but I mean, I did it one time in a guitar competition. Yeah, because I didn't have a guitar tech or a sick guitar, but you break a string and that's it.
Well, check this out. Simon, so recently he had his amp break and his Strat break at the same gig.
Wow.
That's bad news.
So he did an unplugged version, did he?
I hope he didn't plug into the bass amp. Yeah, you know what bass players are like when you want to share their amp. What did you do, Simon? Yeah, and this is the unplugged set now. Yeah, I couldn't imagine that.
Yeah. No. Well, hey, excuse me. You're dealing with different, a lot of different variables, eh? Heat and different air temperatures, and playing at different, getting aggressive with your playing, and I've broken many a string, and it's just, most people break the bottom or the thin E string. I've actually broken that fat E string. I don't know what happens there, but that's weird.
Really?
Yeah, happened a couple of times. Don't know why, but yeah, I'll be talking to Keith soon too to get that 355 set up. Action's really high and the strings are old. I think it'll really sing.
Oh, you know what? Yeah. Keith McMillan will set that up and make it sing absolutely. So I just want to talk a little bit about. So can't you hear me knocking? Like I remember, hearing that. Shall I play it? No, I won't. Because I can't very well. But I remember hearing that, thinking, my gosh. And then when it cuts into that jam, and I want to pat myself on the back, because when I was about 14, when I first heard that, I remember thinking, my gosh, this sounds like Carlos Santana. But I distinctly remember thinking that. And then obviously years later, you read a few reviews and people make that connection, that there is that jam is textbook Santana, they say, textbook, with the congas and the organ going. According to the information that I've got, that jam wasn't planned. It was just something that happened after the song, and they were playing and they just kept the tape rolling. And then Keith said that when they finally stopped and played it, they thought, wow, they have to include that in the song.
I mean, anything.
I think Carl, are you there, Carl? It's okay. Carl will come back on the broadcast. Let's see if we'll come back. Are you back, buddy?
Yep.
Awesome. I was just playing that while you were gone.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, you froze a bit, but yeah, that was bad. I'm not going to play it because you have to crank that up and you have to have some crunch. But yeah, and Keith agrees with us. Keith says that that's his best work, Mick T's best work, that and Love in Vain.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
And here's another thing here too. So I always thought Keith used a particular guitar on that song. What guitar did, Mick Taylor, what guitar do you think Mick Taylor used on that song?
Telecaster?
Mick Taylor?
Yeah.
No.
Gibson SG?
No.
Fender Stratocaster?
No. One last guess.
Les Paul?
No.
Dan Electro Guild?
No, I'm going to answer your question. According to the research I've done, he used a Gibson 345.
Ah, like a jazz guitar.
So I didn't get a chance to actually bring up a picture of a Gibson 345 when I did that research, but I just want to bring that up and see what it. So Gibson 345 is Gibson 3. Well, it's similar to your. So what's the difference between a 345 and your 355?
Different neck inlay.
Ah. So other than that, not much.
Probably not.
Yeah, because I always thought that would have been like you, either a Les Paul or a SG.
So the 345 was first produced in 1958 as an upscale version of the 335. Even though the design is very, very similar, the 345 featured a multi-position varitone switch located above the heat tone and volume controls, which added various combinations of inductors and capacitors to the electronic pickup circuit of the guitar.
So Simon's saying there's not much difference between them. So it's just electronic, maybe some electronic difference. Yeah.
345 also featured an optional stereophonic output jack, gold-plated hardware, large split parallelogram fingerboard inlay, which I mentioned, similar to the ES175, and a thicker 3-ply edge binding than that of the 335. So basically, just a bit more fruit. That's about it.
And there's no definite answer to what Keith was using, but most of the experts say it's either the Black Beauty, which is that Les Paul custom,
yep,
or that Dan Armstrong.
So no telly.
No.
Wow.
According to my research.
I would have thought that would have been just telly, lock, stock, and barrel.
Well, I'm open to anybody else that can. The reading, the books I've got. It's either the Black Beauty or that acrylic Dan Armstrong he had.
Here we go. In 2002, Richards commented on the recording. The jam end wasn't inspired by Carl Santana, like you were saying. We didn't even know it was still taping. There you go. Taylor recorded 79. Can't You Hear Me Knocking is one of my favorites. The jam end just happened by accident, blah, blah, blah. Taylor added, I used a brown Gibson ES345 for Dead Flowers and the solo on Can't You Hear Me Knocking. Pretty cool. Doesn't say anything about Keith's guitar, though, like you say.
No. But that Dan Armstrong, it's the see-through one. Yep, that acrylic one. And we know that Bill had a bass too, didn't he?
Yeah.
So that's going to lead us into another conversation later on when we have probably the guitar show, because there are some guys who argue that tone wood matters, and I'm that guy. I'm one of those guys. I believe that wood makes a difference to the way a guitar sounds. Then you get the other guys saying, well, actually it doesn't. It's the electronics that makes a difference. But when you look at those acrylic guitars, well, they weren't made of wood.
Yeah, no, it's a funny one. Here we go. What guitar did Keith play on the studio version of Can't You Hear Me Knocking? Someone replied, a right-handed one. So no one knows. Here we go. My guess would be the Black Les Paul Custom. That's what he was using a lot for open tunings pre-Telecaster. I always thought Exile was pretty much dominated by the Tele. Don't know. I don't think it was a Dan Armstrong based on no evidence whatsoever.
Yeah, I what I've done is I try and skip those forums and probably go to a guitarist journalist, because there's a lot of opinions, and that's great. I'm a member of a. Here's the negative thing about Facebook groups. I'm a member of a Peter Green Facebook group, and there's a couple of guys on there who are older, and they hung out with the band during their time of reign. And because of that, they use that to beat up anybody else who has an opinion, or anybody else who offers a commentary on anything to do with Peter Green and Fleetwood Mac. And personally, I find that distasteful, because you've got some 23-year-old guy and a 30-year-old guy in England. One guy that's got a whole YouTube channel where he's got a 10-episode series of how to sound like and play like Peter Green, which is brilliant. And he's getting beaten over the head by some guy who said, well, I was there. I hate that, because how's that going to give someone who's a Peter Green or a Stones or a Clapton nut, a young guy who's discovered this music, who's on fire by it and wants to ask questions, and he gets spoken to like a piece of shit by some guy who says, I was there.
It's a funny one, because because I've heard this many a time, but people that were a different generation, because they were there, they think they know, but because they were there, they were fortunate to be there, but they don't know. I don't know.
Well, look, yeah, I'm going to get down and kiss your backside because you told me that you've seen Fleetwood Mac. Great, awesome. I'm going to ask you some questions. But, if some young guy is given an interpretation of playing a song, and he's going out of his way to post that up and to teach another generation and old coots like me how to play some songs, give the guy some respect.
Absolutely. Getting back to the Can't You Hear Me Knocking, it kind of makes sense now. I don't have a very good ear, but more than likely sounds like humbuckers, eh? Just that big fat sound.
I always thought so.
Yeah.
I always thought so.
Yeah.
So Simon's saying,
because it's definitely not a country sound, and we know that Albert. Well, he was going through that big country phase, but I guess when rock came to rock, when he wanted to bring out a bigger gun, he got the humbucker involved.
Yeah, Simon's saying he reckons about 20% body material. So 20% of the body material has an effect on the tone. I'm open to any discussion on that. And then he makes a comment, it's not helpful or collaborative, that sort of attitude. Well, yeah, good. Thanks, Simon. They say if you remember the 60s, you weren't there. I'm going to pinch that. I have to remember, I'm going to tag that on some of the comments. But yeah, that aristocratic attitude that some people have, gosh. Oh.
Well, they like the sound of their own voice. I mean, everyone's entitled to opinion, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's just an opinion. I mean, you're there, great. Someone else 30, 40 years later that couldn't be there, unfortunate, but they're trying to be there through other reasons. Good on them. Like you and I.
Well, yeah, we weren't there. But I don't have the cover, but there's I'll give you a famous example. Hold on. But there's a famous photo of Peter Green and Danny standing together.
Yep.
and one of these young guys makes a reference about how about Danny Kirwan threading his guitar top strung. So do you know what top strung means?
No.
So, okay, so what you do is you put the strings through there, through this end here, and they come around over the top of the bar.
Yeah.
Okay, so I should find the bloody photo. A picture tells 1,000 words. But anyway, this young guy asked the question, and so one of these old coots who'd been there said, "Oh no, Danny never played his Les Paul with his strung top strung." And so this guy gets a famous photo and puts it on there and says, "What's this?" And there's Danny standing there with his Les Paul top strung.
Was that because that's the only way he knew how to string a guitar? Was it a certain tone he was looking for?
No, because apparently what it does is I'm just a simple guitar player, Carl. Don't ask me, but it's got something to do with the way that the guitar feels.
Ah.
I'm going to Google it and I'll show you the pic because it's interesting. Because again, this was a young guy who found that out. And I'm sorry, we're jumping off topic here. We're talking about Peter Green and Danny Kirwan, but it's all related. It's all British blues. Peter Green, Danny Kirwan. You'll be familiar with the picture, the pic if I find it. This one here. Here we go. Okay, so hold on.
I can see the guitar. Can't see.
Okay, well, you don't say anything because I'm just trying to focus it. So don't say anything.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, don't say anything. So can you see how the strings there go across the top of the bridge?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Yep. So that's on Danny's Les Paul. Yep. So again, I jumped in and said, "Yoo-hoo, these young cats teaching these old dogs new tricks. Want to see how high these old dogs jump through the hoop now?" Yeah, they didn't like it, these old dogs. So what Simon can you can reliably remember what happened in 68 40? Yeah, well, that's right. Simon can't remember 2 weeks ago. Yeah, interesting. That song was done in one take and the jam at the end was an accident because the tape kept rolling. Well, that's correct. And we always thought that was a planned part of the song, didn't we, that jam? But all sources say no, it was just an accident.
Wow. And for Mick Taylor, who's in a short amount of time did an incredible body of work, saying that was one of his favourites, tells us, because he's obviously very, very, very classically trained in the sense that not classical music, but classically trained and as far as very melodic, very precise, that the Stones were at the top of their game on that particular song. They were feeling it. I mean, Mick's vocals are amazing. Keith's intro was, how many mafia movies have we seen, or pretty strong American movies with that song they've used in a particular scene so many times. Goodfellas, Casino. Martin Scorsese loves it.
So I think one of the great things about that album, though, is that it paved the way for a whole new guitar sound, didn't it? For a whole new generation of guitar players. So when did that album come out?
71.
Okay, so when did the Allman Brothers start recording?
Oh, late 68, definitely 69. But
68, 69. So the Allman Brothers were certainly influenced by that album later on, weren't they? What album did they produce? They come out with
Live at Film.
I can't remember. But certainly that two guitar sound went from weaving to writing two guitars smack in your face with that album, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that particular song, that album would have, I mean, Keith Riffhard, as we talked about before, would have given new life to all those American garage bands. I mean, we're talking hard rock. We're talking, a lot of the music based around a strong riff, blues based, which is still good. But
yeah, live at Fillmore and Eat a Peach. So apparently, Sticky Fingers had a huge influence on that band for those two albums.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. So Eat a Peach, third studio album, Allman Brothers, Tom Dowd. Tom Dowd's familiar with Sticky Fingers, isn't he?
Yep.
Released February 12th, 1972. Following the second commercial breakthrough release of live album at Fillmore East 71. So you're exactly right. Yep. Twin guitar, heavy riffs, tight band, Latin sound, of course. Absolutely. So, yep. And unfortunately, so Eat a Peach? So who's in the band at that time? Yeah. Was it Dwayne's last album, was it?
I'm not going to go on record and confirm that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Simon's asking us a question. Ever heard an American compilation of garage bands called Nuggets? No, I haven't, Simon, but clearly it must be important because you're making reference to it. So I will have to put that down as something probably I think we need to check out. Nuggets.
Awesome. Hey, I have to wrap this up.
No problem.
Yeah, we've got. I haven't had my dinner.
Yeah. Hey, look, always a pleasure, my friend. We'll catch you Sunday for the show.
Yeah.
Compiled by Lenny. Simon, thanks for joining us and being a part of the chat. Like I said, Simon, if you want to get Google Hangouts and participate in one of the shows, Carl and I would love to have you on. You're just only a message away. So keep that up your sleeve anytime. You're more than welcome. So I'm going to say good night, and I'll give the final word to our mate Carl.
Oh, cool. Hey, thank you, guys. Sorry about missing the show. It's a little under the weather, family commitments, but always good to talk about Keith and the Riffs, and appreciate Andrew taking time out to put this live around the world. I've learned something. I've learned quite a few things tonight, and we're always learning. And just hats off to anybody that plays in the band that's trying to do it. Keep riffing.
And also, I'm saying JC Smith too. Again, the invitation is extended to you too. If you want to jump on board and be part of the chat with Carl and I, again, you're more than welcome. Carl and I always said that we would love to have other Stones nuts here and talk about our passion of guitars, Stones, and British blues. So you're more than welcome.
Beautiful.
All right, buddy. I'll stop the broadcast and